my problem is, I don't smoke. I used to smoke cigarettes, and I used to smoke and this and that and all that. And on my 39th birthday, I quit smoking. And I had been smoking like a fiend because it's bad for your health to smoke. But we don't let smoking here, there, everywhere. And this is just another, in my opinion, potential infringement on people's rights. However, secondhand smoke I don't want either. So I'd like to ask you a few questions. Would you tell us your name first?
David Schulman with the City Attorney's Office.
Where have we banned smoking so far within the world that we've been in the last few years?
The city was one of the nation's leaders in first banning smoking on elevators and public buses in 1964.
Okay.
The city then required workplaces to create non-smoking areas in 1986. The city was one of the first in the country, and at that time it was suggested that that would be unworkable. Instead, today, public opinion would say it's unthinkable to have any smoking in workplaces. Then, over the last few years, the city has been slowly prohibiting smoking in an increasing number of public places. This is all in accord with the Grand Public Health Strategy as follows. If the American people knew that tobacco was the poison it is today, 100 years ago it would never have been legalized. Instead, we have a legal product that people need public assistance in getting the message. They have support for getting off of, just like you received support from your friends and peers. Every time a government agency restricts public smoking, it reinforces the will of more people to quit the habit.
No, I understand that. And frankly, as I was preparing myself for my 39th birthday, I knew that if I wanted to really take care of myself, I should stop smoking. And I motivated myself over a 4-month period, and on my 39th birthday, I stopped smoking, and that's been it. Hallelujah for me personally. I'll be clear about that.
And that probably had a lot to do with peer pressure and support as well.
No. It was just purely I took control over myself. Look, we know there's addictive elements in cigarettes, and people get addicted to that addictive element, whatever it is, the nicotine or whatever we call it. It is a issue, and of course it ends up in emergency rooms, hospitals, and people die of cancer. I mean, it's ridiculous to smoke. But saying that, we banned it now on the beaches. Have we banned it on the beaches?
The county has, and I believe, I'm not sure the city has control over any public beaches.
We banned it in our parks?
I don't recall.
The city did, and we did have some jurisdiction over some beaches.
Okay, so the bottom line is, if you're a smoker, this is another public outdoor location that they can no longer smoke in. What happens if they're walking down the street smoking a cigarette? Are we going to get them on that too?
Well, you know, Mr. Rosenthal, the public health strategy is to protect other people from the behavior.
Sure.
So to talk about banning in public areas is to require a discussion about protecting those who don't engage in this habit.
Sure. So what if Joe Schmo or Mary Smith go to the farmer's market and they got a cigarette? Will we arrest them? Will the cops do something? What will happen to that person if we ban smoking in those farmers?
Well, the wonderful thing is the city's leadership on another issue of public health is really helpful in understanding the answer to your question. When the city was the first jurisdiction in the world to prohibit AIDS discrimination, I was asked to head that unit, which I continue to head. We never had to take anybody to court, to litigation. Why? Because what the city did was a signal to the public at large as to what was and was not appropriate behavior, and workplaces and restaurants began to self-regulate. That seems to be the case with banning smoking. I'm not aware of a single prosecution for anybody smoking on a city bus in quite some time, and we would expect the same self-regulation through peer pressure once the city enacts this ordinance as well.
Admitting his own addiction to nicotine, District 10 Councilmember Herb Wesson says people who smoke have a responsibility to be sensitive to the health of others.
I rise to support this action, and I am the one member of the council who is addicted to nicotine. And what I can say to each and every one of you that are here is that in my dealings with the attempts to smoke, that tobacco is the most difficult drug on the planet to kick. It is more difficult than cocaine or crack. It is more difficult than heroin. I agree with you. If we would have known 100+ years ago, when back in Virginia and places like that where they started the tobacco farms, they probably would not have done it. And even though I understand where Bill is coming from, where this is America and individuals should be afforded the right to do what they want, this is not a communist country, I do think individuals like myself need to be sensitive to the health of others. So I have always supported anything that would...
Admitting his own addiction to nicotine, District 10 Councilmember Herb Wesson says people who smoke have a responsibility to be sensitive to the health of others.
I rise to support this action, and I am the one member of the council who is addicted to nicotine. And what I can say to each and every one of you that are here is that in my dealings with the attempts to smoke, that tobacco is the most difficult drug on the planet to kick. It is more difficult than cocaine or crack. It is more difficult than heroin. I agree with you. If we would have known 100+ years ago, when back in Virginia and places like that where they started the tobacco farms, they probably would not have done it. And even though I understand where Bill is coming from, where this is America and individuals should be afforded the right to do what they want, this is not a communist country, I do think individuals like myself need to be sensitive to the health of others.
Believing we should confine smokers and smoking, District 12 Councilmember Greg Smith, addressing the city attorney, asks about health care costs and offers a personal story.
Do you have any idea what the social cost of the public policy cost is to the American health system to take care of people that are dying from emphysema, lung cancer, and other smoking-related diseases that the public has to pay for in the costs that we carry through Social Security benefits and other health care benefits?
I believe it's in the billions of dollars a year as calculated by University of California, San Francisco researchers.
And that's correct. And that's the bottom line here, folks, is the non-smoking public is forced to bear the burden of the smoking public in the cost of health care throughout this country. I watched my daughter's mother-in-law pass away last year from lung cancer, constant smoker. I am watching her father-in-law sit in a room. He's now 98 pounds, less than 100 pounds, has oxygen on, mask all day long, dying from emphysema caused by constant chain smoking. And I see the devastating effects of a chosen disease. This is not a disease you get by accidental contact, although secondhand smoke is an accidental contact, but it's a disease you get because of a choice you made. And then there's the burden that the families bear and society bears. And I'm watching this man die. He has oxygen. He sits there every day with an oxygen mask on and smoking, waiting to die. That is an unfortunate situation that I wish as a country we could resolve. But the way we can resolve it is by passing all the laws we can to restrict it, to get it out of our society as best we can. And we should confine it to the person's home and say that's where you can smoke. Any public place where it impacts any other person should be made illegal. And I can't wait to vote for this. I voted for every other smoking measure. I will gladly vote for this one.
Contending that it is our duty to help protect city residents by limiting exposure to secondhand smoke, Councilmember Wendy Gruhl says this is a very important position for us to take.
This one, if someone wants to smoke, a farmer's market is a half a block, they can go to the other side of the street. But we ban smoking in restaurants where people are eating and there's food, but we don't, until today, we haven't banned smoking next to people where they're eating food at a farmer's market or they're buying the fresh food. And so I think this is, again, a very important position for us to take. It does seem antithetical that we're giving fresh fruit and trying to really say this is healthy for you, and at the same time allow smoking in those areas. And so this will be an important step for the City of Los Angeles to protect people who want to go to those farmers markets in a smoke-free area to purchase healthy food for their families. Thank you.
Let's go ahead and prepare the roll and tabulate the vote.
15 ayes.
All right, that is approved. We'll send that without objection forthwith.
Again, that vote was to amend the city code to prohibit smoking in city-permitted farmers markets, and it was unanimous. LA City View is the government access cable channel for the City of Los Angeles, featuring live coverage of city council meetings and programming about city department services and events. Now, if you have suggestions or comments about any of the programs you see here on Channel 35 or would like to receive a free viewer guide, call our viewer hotline at 213-473-3978. And we invite you to address the Los Angeles City Council on any item on the council agenda, as well as during public comment. You may come downtown to City Hall or go to the Van Nuys City Hall and participate via video teleconferencing. And remember, you can watch all Los Angeles City Council meetings live in their entirety on Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Fridays beginning at 10 a.m. On Sundays, you can watch the replay of all the week's meetings, also beginning at 10 a.m. Council Week in Review can be seen Monday through Friday at 9:30 a.m. and 6:30 p.m. and on Sundays at 9:30 a.m. Well, that concludes our program for the week ending September 12th, 2008. On behalf of Michael Martin and everyone here at Channel 35, I'm Jack Popejoy. Thank you for watching, and please join us for the next Council Week in Review.
Would you pay to euthanize your healthy family pet? Of course not. So why let your tax dollars be used to do just that? Hello, this is Coco and my wife Norma, and I'm Councilman Tony Cardenas, reminding you that a law will take effect October 1st to humanely decrease the number of abandoned pets discarded every year. Let's make Los Angeles the most humane city in the country. Spay or neuter your cats and dogs. Go to LAAnimalservices.com or 1-800-SPAY4LA.
My God, how did this happen? As a child, I was always in a hurry. As I got older, I was always distracted. And in another second,
I got hit by a car.
I'll kill a little girl. Our driving behavior starts at an early age. Traffic safety is everybody's responsibility. Watch the road.
LA City View Channel 35. Your city, your channel.
morning, Los Angeles, and welcome to the City Council meeting for Tuesday, September 16th, 2008. We're here in the John Ferraro Council Chambers, room 340 of City Hall. We meet here every Tuesday, Wednesday, and Friday at 10 a.m. We want to welcome members of the public who have joined us and our viewers on Channel 35. We are broadcast live on Channel 35 each meeting and rebroadcast in the evening. We also archive our council meetings online at lacity.org, where you can watch live streaming webcasts of our council meetings as well. Lastly, if you're not close to a computer or a telephone, or a television, you can use your telephone and call in to listen to our council meetings at 213-621-CITY. That's 213-621-CITY, and you can listen to any of the council committees or the full council meetings as well. I'm Council President Eric Garcetti, and I'm joined by my colleagues today, Councilwoman Wendy Gruhl, Councilwoman Janice Hahn, Councilmember Tom LaBonge, Bernard Parks, Ed Reyes, Bill Rosendahl, Greg Smith, Herb Wesson, and Dennis Zine. We now have 10 members, so we do have a quorum. If you'd like to be heard on any of the items, please feel free to fill out a speaker card. Those speaker cards are in the back of the council chambers, and they're also in Van Nuys, where we can listen to you remotely via teleconferencing. And our agendas are posted on the side and in the back. Those are made available 72 hours in advance, 24 hours in advance for our special meetings. So with that, Mr. Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Alarcon, Cardenas, Gruhl, Hahn, Weezer, LaBonge, Parks, Perry, Reyes, Rosendahl, Smith, Weiss, Wesson, Zine, Garcetti. 10 members present and a quorum, Mr. President.
Thank you. If I could have everyone's attention at the outset, it's difficult to obviously begin this meeting without commemorating the events of this past weekend, the Metrolink disaster, and we will be having a number of adjourning motions and speeches, but I would just ask that if we could please stand and have a moment of silence for all of the victims. Thank you. First order of business, please.
Approval of the minutes.
Mr. Wesson moves, Mr. Reyes seconds. Without objection, those will be approved.
Commendatory resolutions for approval.
Mr. LaBonge moves and Mr. Parks seconds. Without objection, those will be approved as well.
Mr. President, this is Tuesday and there's a flag salute.
Mr. Smith, would you be kind enough to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance? And if I can ask everybody to please rise again for our salute to the flag.
Thank you very much. And if you'd place your hand over your heart and repeat it with me, I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. People who have money.
Just as a general note for folks that are disruptive of the meeting, please, you're entitled, and there's public comment and time to say all things, but please do not be disruptive of the meeting, and that will serve as a warning. Please proceed with the next order of business.
Mr. President, you wish to go through the agenda?
Yes, please.
First items on the agenda, items 1 through 3 are street lighting district items, notice for public hearing. The council should continue the hearings and present the ordinances on October 7th.
Okay. Anybody wish to call any of those special? If not, we will go ahead and open those hearings and continue them until the 7th of October. Next items, please.
Items 4 and 5 are also street lighting district items, notice for public hearing, and council should continue those hearings and ordinances to October 8th.
Okay, any objection, colleagues, to that? If not, we will continue those till the 8th of October. Next items.
Items 6 and 7 are proposed sewer improvement projects in council districts 2 and 5, notice for public hearing. Council should close the public hearings and continue the items to October 7th for the ballot results.
Okay, we'll close those hearings without objection. Mr. Reyes?
Council President, item 9.
Okay, hold on one quick second. We'll grab that in 1 second. 6 and 7, if there's no objection to continuing till the 7th, we'll go ahead and do that. Next items.
Items 8 and 9 are street vacation items, notice for public hearing.
Okay, Mr. Reyes calls 9 special.
Yes, if we just open and close public hearing when appropriate and hold it on the desk for an amendment.
We have no cards on that, so we will call that special for Mr. Reyes for the amendment. Number 8, we have an instruction to the city engineer, is that correct?
That's correct, Mr. President.
Okay, there's no objection. Let's take that up to instruct the city attorney to proceed. Please open the roll, close the roll, and tabulate the vote.
11 ayes.
That is approved. Next items, please.
Items 10 through 25 are items for which public hearings have been held. Item 10 is a commission appointment. Do you wish to hold that on the desk?
Yes, please. Let's hold number 10 on the desk. Next items.
That would leave Council 11 through 25.
Okay. Colleagues, any specials? Yes, Ms. Perry?
Yeah, just hold 16 on the desk for an amending motion.
Okay, 16 for Ms. Perry. Ms. Gruhl?
24, because we're also going to have an amending motion.
24 for Ms. Gruhl. If there are no other items, let's hold 11 until we have 12 members, since that is an ordinance. And on the balance, if we can please open the roll, close the roll, and tabulate the vote.
11 ayes.
Those are approved. 15. Let's send that forthwith without objection, please. Next items.
Items 26 through 36 are items for which public hearings have not been held. 10 votes are required for consideration.
Okay. Do we have cards from the public on those?
Yes, Mr. President. There are cards on 29, 30, 31, and 35.
Okay. On the balance, we will open and close the public hearings. Any special items, council members, 26 through 36? Any special items? If not, let's hold 26 on the desk as an ordinance, and please open the roll on the balance, close the roll, and tabulate the vote.
11 ayes.
Okay, that is approved. Next item, please.
On the supplemental agenda, item 37 is an item for which public hearing has not been held. 10 votes are required for consideration, and there is a card on that matter.
Okay. Is there any objection to consideration? If not, we will go ahead and we'll call that special for cards from the public and Mr. Labange, and we'll keep that on the desk. That will take us back to public comment, which we will now. Yeah, Mr. Zahn?
25 forthwith, please. Number 25.
Yes, without objection, we'll send
Thank you.
25 forthwith. And let's see, we are still awaiting Mr. Alarcon and Mr. Cardenas, if they will please make their way down to council chambers. It is now about 10:22. Our first speaker is Zuma Dog, and then we'll go out to Donna Perman out in the San Fernando Valley. Good morning, Mr. Dog.
Yes, good morning, City Council. Good morning, City of Los Angeles. I'd like to talk a little bit about the great weekend I had as a city activist here as I've come into chambers and taken on many issues. I attended the Bernard Parks for Board of County Supervisor community campaign kickoff rally in his district. And let me tell you, folks, it was a delightful experience. And Congresswoman Maxine Waters showed up and she gave a speech. Supervisor Gloria Molina, Jan Perry delivered an amazing speech, and Bill Rosendahl really went nuts and knocked it out of the park for Parks. However, I'd like to thank Councilmember Parks because the event was not complete. There was a distinguished member of the community in the audience, and I don't know if he handed me the mic or I grabbed it out of his hand, but I got up there on the stage with Maxine Waters, Gloria Molina, Jan Perry, and Councilmember Rosendahl to give my full endorsement and support for Councilmember Parks. And they say that it's not under jurisdiction, but I'd like to say that there will be a council vacancy, seat vacancy if he wins, and that does make this an important matter. Plus, this is happening in the city of L.A., and you can read the L.A. Times and Daily News that the labor unions are basically trying to buy the election out from under the
Mr.
community.
President, the Board of Supervisors election is not within the jurisdiction of the City Council.
Okay, well then let me say this. I would like to ask City Council if they could consider it under their jurisdiction, because I say if Bernard Parks is not elected Board of County Supervisor, you may as well flush the region down the toilet, and then the city will be in the toilet. I say that the elections are being bought out from under the community by the unions.
Mr. Dog, if you'll please lower your voice.
Yes, I say that the election is being bought out from under the community with labor money that is shady, and I think it's a huge statement when Zuma Dog comes up here. I thought I'd be trying to get in the way of somebody from council, and I'm here to say it's of critical importance. Bernard Parks for Board of County Supervisors, or kiss the region goodbye.
Thank you. Donna Perriman is our next speaker in Van Nuys. Good morning.
Hello, Mr. Garcetti. Anyway, with our latest disaster on the Metrolink, the City Council needs to step up with the Metro to prevent this from happening again. This was done in Councilman Smith's district, I believe. How dare the MTA ask for a half-cent sales tax in November? They knew how to prevent accidents. They have a way to stop the Metrolink from going forward if it passes a red light. Of course, it would have to stop instantaneously or the accident would still happen. We can't rely on an overworked, tired human to have this load to entirely on his or her shoulders, and was he really text messaging while having all those people under his charge? We don't know. I'd also like to thank Councilman Rosendahl for being brave enough to question the smoking ordinance in the farmers market. It's an outside area, and I know one thing I don't like is our signs are not well written enough to know where a person can or cannot smoke. I mean, can't smoke. So I think this is done so they can give out tickets. And I'm concerned about, I don't know when the meter fees are going to go up, and I'd like to know a little more about that. Anyway, I'd like to say that people, you need to vote against all these ordinances in November. You need to vote against the sales tax. You need to vote against the gang tax, because this going to, they're not going to be able to use our money correctly. As Zuma Dog says, they have $30 million they're using and they haven't done it yet. Why would they be able to do it now? And okay, so I guess that's it. So please vote against all these things, because this is property tax, and with all our taxes going up, our trash tax, I don't like the newest trash tax. These are just making people go broke. So please vote against taxes, otherwise you're saying you love to pay more money. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Our next speaker is here in council chambers. It's Elaine Edelman. After that is Johanna Goldberg. Good morning, Ms. Edelman.
I'm here as a representative of the Autry National Center, and I just want to say that as a professional educator, I totally support the expansion of the Autry. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate your comments. Johanna Goldberg is our next speaker, and then David Morehouse. Good morning.
Good morning, Mr. President.
Would you mind moving the microphone down just a little bit so we can hear you?
Sure.
Thank you. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the council. I, too, am here to speak in favor of the Autry Museum's plans for expansion. I've been a docent at the Autry for the last year. I love touring school children every Thursday morning. Their excitement as they learn about the amazing diversity and heritage of the West is my reward as a volunteer, and the expansion will just allow us to do that in a much broader scope than we can today. Thank you.
Thank you. David Morehouse is next, and then Muriel Tyree.
Good morning. My name is David Morehouse. I also support the activities of the Autry. My first association was in the late 80s as a banker, where I helped raise monies for the organization. At that time, it was thought of as being just a cowboy museum. However, I invite each of you to come to the Autry, and we'll be happy to give you a personal tour during the time that we're leading the kids on their tours. The organization is over 100 years old with its affiliation with the Southwest Museum. We also have a library and other activities, and I fully support the proposed construction activities to expand the Autry over 2/3 of its existing size. That is to say, 3 times its existing size. So when the motion does come to you, please give it your favorable consideration. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Muriel Tyree is our next speaker. After that is Wes Vandershoff.
Guess what? I, too, am a member of the Autry National Center. I am thankful to be here. I appreciate the time to talk. I do fully support the new plans for the Autry National Center. Both the Southwest Museum and the Museum of the American West needed more space to show the artifacts of the peoples of the past, those who lived here before us. And so with the merger and the new Autry National Center, they do need more space, always did. So this isn't really anything new. So please come see us if you haven't already, and you'll just be excited about those people who came before us. So thank you.
Thank you. Wes Vandershoff is our next speaker, then Daniel Wright. Good morning.
Good morning. My name is Wes Vanderschaff. I'm with the LaRouche Political Action Committee. I don't know if you guys remember, but towards the end of last year, several of our members came into the City Council here to give testimony for a program called the Homeowners and Bank Protection Act of 2007. This program would have prevented what has happened over the past 2 weekends with the bailout of Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, We are calling for a freeze on foreclosures. We weren't calling for the protection of the speculators. And basically, we've been engaged in building up a movement of local elected officials, city councils, and others. We've passed this resolution in over 100 city councils throughout the United States as a resolution calling on the Congress to take action on this. The Congress, the presidency, the presidential candidates have all failed in taking the leadership that's needed right now in the financial crisis. All of them agreed with Barney Frank, with Chris Dodd, with Henry Paulson, with Nancy Pelosi. There's a complete political failure, which is why we are pushing for these city councils and other local elected officials to take action on this program that Lyndon LaRouche has put forward. This is the only solution that's out there. We're pointing out that if there isn't something done right now about this, if we continue to try to bail out this system, which we've seen over the past 2 days, there's been $200 billion in credit injections that's yesterday and today, $200 billion. Lehman Brothers is gone. Merrill Lynch taken over by Bank of America. Next it's going to be AIG. Who knows what's next down the line, but these banks will not last with this current system. The dollar will not last without a change in the current system.
Thank you, Mr. Vanderschaft. Daniel Wright is our next speaker, then Freddie Coronel. Good morning.
Good morning. I see the clock has already started. Daniel Wright, 467 Crane Boulevard, on behalf of the Friends of the Southwest Museum, on the web at www.friendsofthesouthwestmuseum.com, or join the debate at www.blackhatblogwordpress.com. Today we have provided you with a record of the Autry National Center's past behavior. We have given you the Autry's press release in March of 2003 when the merger happened with the Southwest Museum. Look at the last page where the Autry claimed its combined endowment with the Southwest was $105 million, $100 million from the Autry and $5 million from the Southwest. The $5 million figure from the Southwest was true, but the actual Autry endowment was only $1.8 million, as shown by their own tax returns. The $100 million was a false statement, repeated in the Los Angeles Times and other papers. Note also the promise to restore the Southwest Museum buildings at the top of the last page. Now, ask yourself what might happen on an Autry press, or what might an Autry press release look like 6 months after this council might approve the completely unnecessary movement of the Southwest Museum from land privately owned by the Autry to taxpayer-owned land in Griffith Park. Let's imagine that you vote to authorize Autry's proposal. We now know that there's a link between your possible decision and the $3.5 billion LACCD bond on the November ballot. Autry may be telling you it will assume or assure that Southwest Museum will be a cultural center, but the bond sets aside $12 million for the renovation of the Southwest Museum. Autry is about to breach its promises if you allow them by approving this project. Please pay attention and have your staff read the websites I have cited. Thank you so much, council members.
Thank you, Mr. Wright. Freddie Coronel is our next speaker. After that, we'll go to Rick Nightingale in Van Nuys. Good morning, Mr. Coronel.
Hello. Good morning. My name is Freddie Coronel, and I'm a representative of the LaRouche Political Action Committee. At this moment, we are facing perhaps the biggest crisis in the history of the United States. Unfortunately, every Democratic member in Congress did vote for the Barney Frank, Chris Dodd bill, and we've now seen the effects of it. If today AIG doesn't come up with $70 billion, they may go down as well. We come here today to ask the members of the Los Angeles City Council to join a nationwide movement of other city councils and local officials to put together a firewall for the banking system and for the people, most importantly. We have an act known as the Homeowners and Bank Protection Act. We circulated it to your offices yesterday. It's part of this pamphlet here that's been circulating throughout Washington, D.C. and other parts of the country. At this moment, there is no leadership within Congress, and I think that's very clear to a lot of people. We have solutions, we have policies, and we'd like to discuss this further. As I said, at this moment, it's really going to come up to the local officials. Nancy Pelosi and others are taking dirty money, so it's really going to be left up to you guys and the population and what we do.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Rick Nightingale in the San Fernando Valley, and then Melrose Larry Green back here in Chambers. Good morning,
Hey, good
Mr.
morning, Rick Nightingale. I hope you turn around. I read something about it was on the council regarding the marijuana thing about they can go at the different stores and they get it. I just lost one of my favorite cousins because of this. Gentleman, 22 years old. He's been in rehab twice. Turned around on marijuana and so forth. Decided to crash into him, hit him broadside, and killed him. I just look at it, the whole thing is marijuana. You just can't face reality. Same as the kids getting drunk and smoking grass and taking pills and everything else. You know, we all have problems. I just believe it's just you just can't face reality. I realize people are in pain. That's why they have doctors and they have all this medicine that's around. And that I got hurt when I was in my early 20s. I could have been on permanent disability, and I refused it. I work with pain. I get up with pain, just like so many other people. I was in construction. But that's life. But then let's get back over to something else. The council turned around, and I didn't even read this in the paper. I read it every day, this federal marriage bill, the H.R. 6115. I never even heard of it. But it's coming up to election on something like this, and I think it's very appropriate for the council to come and say, well, we completely back this situation and so forth. You work for us. The majority says we don't want it. I believe in everybody is equal, but this coming up on a ballot, if you want to get out and say it to your own thing, that's fine. But as a council, you had no business doing it because you're not getting my vote on it. So I think you're out of line. And let's go back to the fee waivers, too. I think that you are out of line with the fee waivers. You're overstepping your bounds. We're supposed to be hurting for money. We're always hurting for money. And you're giving stuff away. You don't give stuff away if you can't afford it. You give it when you can. That's what you have to do, especially for the charities and so forth. So I think you're out of bounds on that. Thank you.
Thank you. Melrose Larry Green is our next speaker.
Good morning. I'll be real quick. My name is Melrose Larry Green. Sorry, I'm not dressed. This happened to be in the area. I took a bus down here on the Metro. First, I want to express my condolences for the victims and family and friends of the terrible train accident on Metrolink. If it is true that the engineer was text messaging, it is doubly important that, and tragically important, that we enforce the laws on the books against talking on the cell phone while driving. And if text messaging is legal, it should not be legal. I see it all over L.A., people on the phones. I know you're all overworked and our cops are overworked, but I see it hundreds of times a day, and it's terrible. So may they rest in peace, and I wish a speedy recovery to the victims. Secondly, in my district, the 4th district, I was at the farmer's market last week, and I saw people parking in the middle, Tom, in the middle of Larchmont Boulevard, people parking their cars, which is totally illegal. I called DOT, and many of those cars were ticketed. So for those of you who live in Larchmont Village, you can't park in the middle of Larchmont. Thirdly, I see people walking their dogs without leashes. Right where I live in Hancock Park, the law applies to white people too. In Runyon Canyon, people are walking their dogs without leashes. The last thing I want to say is that I adopted a cat about a year ago. And, you know, I run around all over L.A., and my beautiful cat has 2-bedroom apartment to himself. Remember that cat, Herb? If you want true love, I don't care if you're a Democrat or Republican, adopt a dog or cat from the city of L.A. I got to tell you, folks, my cat named Antonio Villaragosa, after a hard day of running around this city, he sits, we love each other. I get married if I could marry a cat. And I must say, I mean what I'm saying. Lastly, I got 14 seconds. To my Jewish friends, which is Jack Weiss and half of Eric Garcetti, Lashana Tova, which means Happy New Year. And again, adopt an animal. I'm Melrose Larry Green. We got it all in 2 minutes. Go Dodgers. Thank you.
But Mr. Green, it's the right half, right?
What's that?
It's the right half.
That's right.
Okay. Arnold Sachs is our next speaker. And then we have M. Lawrence Dickerson.
Good morning, you criminals. Thank you very much for your time. I'm just reporting back on the item that appeared last week regarding the signage contract that you gave away almost $40 million worth of property value for $2 million. The LA Arena Land Company got a signage rights that AEG received as part of negotiations when Staples Center was built. The signage rights were awarded as an exclusive part of the contract. What part of exclusive allows the LA Arena Land Company to enter into the contracting? Where is the city attorney to step up and say, wait a minute, we have an exclusive contract with AEG. Who is LA Arena Land Company? $2 million? Has anybody taken a market value look at what advertising goes for in the city of LA, what the signage goes for at Olympic and Figueroa, what the signage goes for on Sunset Boulevard? This is one of the most heavily traveled freeways in the country. $2 million. Easy $40 million a year for advertising for the signage that'll probably go up on the LA Convention Center. We got $2 million, only cost us $38 million. Open and transparent. The committee meeting, the council meeting, the council agenda all said LA Arena Land Company. The newspaper article, AEG. Where is the connection? That's right. AEG owns LA Arena Land Company as a subsidiary. We've talked about the other subsidiaries. I mentioned them on Friday. The Galaxy, the Kings, Staples Center, Nokia Theater, LA Live, Chivas, David Beckham. Everybody gets paid before the city gets a dime, and the city is going to hurrah for $2 million. Councilman Labange mentioned 10% for arts of $2 million. How about 10% of $40 million, Councilman Labange? Why didn't you step up then?
Thank you, Mr. Sachs. Our next speaker is M. Lawrence Dickerson. After that will be Warren Williams. Good morning.
Good morning, and as always, I'm most appreciative of the opportunity to be here. We're all talking about being broke, right? Well, New Deal. Our proud and courageous governor is slashing his way through by cutting the salaries of the Department of Motor Vehicles down to whatever it was, right? But here's the deal. We got city employees sitting with the motors running in the parking enforcement cars. We got police sitting with the motors running. Federal, state, county, local. It is now time to stop wasting money. Hello, city employees, county employees, federal employees, you want to keep your jobs? Stop wasting money. Stop throwing away energy. Stop throwing away paper. You guys have got to figure out some kind of way to get these guys with the big budgets. Oh, I'm more powerful than you. I have a $5 million budget and you only have a $500,000 budget. So at the end of the year, I better spend the rest of my $4.7 million so I can keep my budget. That's got to stop too. Budget size equating with power, dumping cash at the end of the year so you can still get the same size. All that, pal, that's not what we're doing anymore. We don't have debtor's prison, we don't have slavery, and now it's time to stop wasting government fiscal resource. Hello, stop wasting government fiscal resource. Hello, stop wasting government fiscal resource. One more time. Let us all stop wasting government fiscal resource. You want to keep your job? You don't want to get caught to $6 an hour? You guys, it's you now. You don't have to serve the constituents and do this. You have to serve yourselves now. Stop wasting money. City employees, federal employees, state employees, county employees, stop wasting money. Save your own jobs, save your own skins, save your own benefits. Stop wasting money.
Thank you. Our next speaker after Mr. Dickerson is Warren Williams. Good morning, Mr. Williams.
You're representing all people who are for quality living. I agree with Michael Lawrence Dickerson that just spoke on stop wasting public funds, which means all money. You know, it's real easy to forget about the purpose of government. The intent of government is to serve the people. The intent of government is for the people to be government. But how can the homeless, how can children who are neglected and abused and in foster care, who are suffering because of the waste of public funds, because that's not the priority. How can fathers wrongly separated from their children because the waste of law enforcement to enforce orders that deprive them to have the appropriate time with their children, a waste of funds? What about the recent visit that many city and county employees took, a waste of funds at Leimert Park, to stop some local vendors from selling some cultural products to interested citizens? A waste of public funds. What is the waste of funds? When we're looking at an award for graffiti of $1,000, how many thousands of dollars are going to be given out? When we look at all the events under item number 35, what would happen if one whole year the city did not fund all those special events, and instead we use those funds for quality living? How is it that we have world black history, but yet it is not taught the truth of Egypt, the greatness of Kemet? So young children grow up in steel ghettos because of a waste of public funds. So I close on the point that it may seem too simple, it may seem insignificant, but it is a reality.
That will close our public comment.
And a waste of public funds and fund quality living.
We'll now go back to the items that were held on the desk as ordinances. That's, I believe, 11 and 26. We can please take those up. Now that we have 12 members, please open the roll, close the roll, and tabulate the vote.
14 ayes.
Those are approved. Number 9, Mr. Reyes, do we have the motion on that, or are we still? Did we get the amending motion on 9? Okay. Let's take up the commissioner then. Number 10, please.
Item 10 is the appointment of Ms. Irma Munoz to the Environmental Affairs Commission.
Ms. Munoz, if you'd like to come up here to the table, and like to recognize the chair of our Energy and Environment Committee, Ms. Perry.
Mr. President, Ms. Munoz was gracious enough to attend our committee meeting and share some of her thoughts about goals and objectives that she has for the rest of her term on the commission, and also what she considers to be some of the largest or biggest problems facing the department at this time. And I'd just like to ask her if she could take a few minutes and summarize what she shared with us at committee.
Good morning, Mr. Chair and members of the City Council. It's my honor and privilege to be here before you. I actually think, as you have decided and are determined to make the City of Los Angeles the greenest and most sustainable, not in the state, not in the country, but in the world, which is a very honorable thing to do, and I want to be a part of that effort. I think that there are many Angelenos who are very concerned about global warming, are very concerned about many issues that you're concerned about, but for some reason, we've not talked to them. There are neighborhoods and many communities that for some reason have not given us their opinion, who are not engaged. And in order for us to meet the goal of becoming the most sustainable and the most green, we need to speak to every resident, to every household, to every neighborhood block, to every community, so that all together we can work towards that goal. My focus will be on bringing in those folks that have been the unheard, who have been the voiceless, because that's the work that I do with my organization, Mujeres de la Tierra, to be able to engage folks who traditionally have not been engaged. And I would serve with much pleasure, determination, and passion.
Thank you very much. We have a number of council members that would like to ask some questions, starting with Mr. Reyes and then Mr. Cardenas. Mr. Reyes.
Thank you, Council President. I just rise to support Ms. Munoz. I've had the privilege and honor to work with her for several years now, working in doing what she just articulated, going into communities, having discussions on how they participate at the grassroots level. It's been very enlightening to see how, with a little bit of nurturing, a little bit of respect, she was able to organize many of the moms who are out with their kids at the recreation fields. She engaged some of the soccer leagues, and we started seeing a groundswell of folks attending the meetings. It had a lot to do with their concern for what was happening to the environment. Her work with the LA River and getting some of the students involved has been very admirable, very effective, and it's great to see that level of interaction that we tend to overlook because of logistics, because of money, because of time. She was able to focus on those issues in such a way where she could leverage many of what little resources she did have and actually make a great impact. So it's great to have you at this committee. It's great to see that perspective become much more amplified, and I'm hoping that with your participation, we continue to drill down to the various areas of the city that have a history of non-participation because of many barriers that you've been able to break through. Thank you, Ms. Munoz. I look forward to working with you.
Thank you, Thank you, Councilman Reyes.
Thank you, Mr. Reyes. Mr. Cardenas is our next speaker. Mr. Cardenas?
Thank you. It's really wonderful to hear over and 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 over again how the city of Los Angeles wants to be the greenest city in the country, in the state, in the world, etc. And you just pointed that out, that rhetoric that we keep hearing. But one of the things that I find interesting is it seems like people want to call us the greenest city based on the amount of energy conservation or the energy we do or don't use. And then some people say we want to be the greenest city based on how we handle our waste. And then some people say we want to be the greenest city because of this reason and that and that and that. Fact of the matter is, there are various issues that I don't think we're really addressing in this city. And one of them is we have constituencies that have certain ways in which we already know we should communicate with them if we want them to come on board and understand these objectives, such as language, culture, the diversity that we brag about in this city. We need to be able to reach to all communities involved. We have 4 million people. How do you recommend that we do that?
Well,
and I'm not asking for a holistic answer, but I mean, give me some tidbits of what you think we should do to embark on that journey of including everybody in this greenest city idea.
Well, Mr. Councilman, I'm a community organizer and a community activist by profession, but I'm also a community builder. And I think it's about building a community one neighborhood at a time. It's not about going in and having a meeting, taking a photo, and walking away. I do believe that every Angelino wants to take both a personal and collective responsibility, but they want to be asked, they want to be engaged, they want to know that their contribution matters. And in the neighborhoods in which I work, and it's door to door, it's going into people's living rooms, it's very intense work, and many times there aren't the financial resources of the staff to do that. And what we do is that we organize women who are concerned about their families, who want to change the condition of their families, who are the women who volunteer because they know at the end of the day their families and their neighborhoods will be better.
Thank you. Again, that's one good answer and an honest answer. Thank you very much. But also, in addition to that, I think it's important for all of us to understand that one of the things that people like to say is, well, this wonderful system of emailing, it works so wonderfully. Now let's just email everybody. But the problem is we have a digital divide in poor communities and communities of color. So we think that we're communicating with all of us or as many people as possible, and to conserve paper, which is a wonderful thing, we say, well, let's just blast email everybody. That's one perfect example where we're missing the mark and we're not stepping back and realizing that if we're going to include everybody, we have to be sensitive to the fact that there are different issues and different needs that face our Angelinos. So hopefully through your commission, you can go ahead and spearhead one of the most vital issues, which is true and honest communication and inclusion of everybody. So based on your opening statement, it sounds like that's something that is near and dear to you and something you understand a lot about. Hopefully you'll be successful. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Councilman.
Thank you very much, council members. And we have a great nominee. We very much enjoyed having you in committee as well. And with that, there are no other speakers on the queue, so let's take the vote. If we can please open the roll, close the roll, and tabulate the vote.
14 ayes.
Congratulations, Commissioner. Welcome aboard.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for your service. Appreciate it. Mr. Reyes, did you have a amending motion on 9, or was it just for the public hearing? There are no cards on it.
About item 9?
Yep.
If we can continue that one day.
Okay, sure.
Thank you.
We'll close the public hearing
Close the
and
public
continue
hearing.
it till tomorrow, the 17th. Okay? Thank you, Mr. Reyes. Without objection. Item number 16, please. Ms. Perry calls.
Item 16 was called special by Councilmember Perry, and the amending motion has not yet been circulated.
Okay. Why don't we
Hold that on the desk.
hold that and go to the next item, please?
Item 24 was called special by Councilmember Gruhl.
Okay. Ms. Gruhl, item number 24.
If we could, I think they're still distributing
They're
that
still doing that?
document
Okay.
as well. I don't know if you've
All
seen
right.
the amendment,
No
so
problem.
we could hold on the table.
We'll go to the next item.
Item 29 called special for cards.
Okay. We have Zuma Dog on item number 29. Mr. Dog? Going once, going twice. I believe he has left the premises right now, so we will go ahead and close the public hearing on 29. Please open the roll, close the roll, and tabulate the vote.
14 ayes.
Okay, next item.
Item 30 called special for cards.
Okay, that's also Mr. Dog. I do not see him here. We'll close the public hearing. Please prepare the roll and tabulate the vote.
14 ayes.
That is approved. Next item.
Item 31 called special for cards.
It's also a card from Mr. Dog. I do not see him in the chambers. Mr. Dog, are you here? Not? Go ahead and please prepare the roll and tabulate the vote.
14 ayes.
That is approved. Next item, please.
Item 35 called special for cards.
Two cards. Mr. Dog, still not here. We will record his name and we'll go to Donna Pearman out in the San Fernando Valley for item 35. Good morning again.
See, with Stop Wasting Our Resources, it's not right to go after the county, city, federal employees. That's not where the waste is at. With waste up to the billions, you look at the small picture. Anyway, I'll talk about that later. Anyway, I forgot to tell the city council, remember, God is looking at you. Do you really want to run the city in the ground? Do you only care for your reelection? While you pass these fee waivers, I agree if you didn't have all these fee events and use them for more important events, that would be nice. The big fees is the St. Patrick School Family Carnival for $6,359, LA Mediterranean Festival for $6,000, the Los Angeles Tino International Film Festival for $8,350, the 7th Annual Kicking Cancer 5K Walk Run for $16,820. While I like to fight cancer because I had it myself, shouldn't we find another way to fund it? I mean, it's a worthy event. I think that some of these rich people who can have a tax write-off would like to fund that. And the same with the 8th Annual San Fernando Valley Veterans Day Parade is the Little High for $6,382. I still feel that if that's a worthy project that we can find somebody that would fund these things. And I even hear that a lot of these fee waivers don't even end on these things. We waive all these fees, but they still charge people. And this only goes for a small amount of the part of the fee waivers. So in the end, all these fee waivers end up costing even a lot more money than what's written down here. And then you add all the ones that are not submitted. So I would say, for once, please vote against fee waivers. But I don't see that happening. Close the roll, tabulate the vote. 12 ayes. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Pearman. That will close our public hearing on this. If we can please prepare the roll and tabulate the vote.
14 ayes.
Thank you. That is approved. We have, I believe, two special items. Can we take up special 2 first?
Mr. President, on item 24, the amending motion has now been circulated.
Okay.
Do you wish to take that?
All right. If there's no objection, we have item 24. That has been circulated. We'll move the substitute resolution by Ms. Gruhl. I'll second that. And can we please prepare the roll and tabulate the vote?
14 ayes.
Okay, that is approved. We'll send that forthwith without objection. And are we still awaiting 16 as well? Okay. We do have two specials that are expected to be circulated shortly. Mr. Parks, I know you have a special item. Oh, we still have 37. I'm sorry. Why don't we go ahead then on 37? We'll take that up next.
Yeah, item 37 was called special by Councilmember Labange, and 2 votes are required on this.
Okay. We have cards on this first. Zuma Dog, not see him here. And Edwin Musayan is our next speaker.
Oh, I'm sorry, I couldn't hear. Could we reconsider it, please?
I'm sorry, Mr. If you just don't mind waiting 1 second, we're going to just take up 24. We'll reconsider that.
Well, 'cause I said
Please open the roll for reconsideration, close the roll, and tabulate the vote.
14 ayes.
That is before us again. Ms. Gruhl called that special. Ms. Gruhl?
Thank you very much, and my apologies, Mr. Garcetti. I did not hear that it had actually been distributed. Colleagues, before you today is some overall policy discussions of the reauthorization of SAFETY-LU, which is Safe, Accountable, Flexible, Efficient Transportation Equity Act is what it stands for. This is a kind of a general overarching policy as they begin the dialogue in the reauthorization. This will not be our last time. Thank you. Yes, a little noisy in the
If I could ask the Sergeants-at-Arms to please, and if I could ask folks who are currently engaged in conversations as much as possible to please take those outside of council chambers. Thank you. Ms. Gruhl?
You'll see in here that the new legislation, and Senator Boxer has dubbed the new federal legislation MAP 21, which is moving ahead for progress in the 21st century, and really has called for the reexamination of the federal role and priorities in addressing the national transportation needs. Significant reform, streamlining of federal processes, and support for cooperative working relationships to all levels of government. She had a hearing last week, and they have opened the comment period for, I think it is another additional 2 weeks, and wanted to make sure that we had our responses. And you have before you those items. And if we could have, Maria from the CLA, Maria, could you come up for a minute, please? One of the issues that is come to our, unfortunate top of our list is safety issues related to our train and so forth. And I heard Senator Feinstein today talk about some of that on the radio this morning and others as part of the federal legislation. The possibility of making sure that there is a focus on some of the issues that became aware on the Metrolink with 2 trains going on the same track and all of that. With our understanding of the legislation and the discussion, it is appropriate for us to include language that safety improvements that would be, as part of this legislation, be included. Would that require amending the report that we had before us in Transportation Committee?
It would require you amending the attachment that's attached to the resolution. We can add a bullet point reiterating what you just said about safety. Did you want it limited to the railroads or just safety?
I think safety, railroads particularly, as we've just had this with Metrolink and other locations. I know Ms. Hahn has one of the most areas that has a lot of rail that is going through that area. In the past, we have talked about rail crossings and the Alameda Corridor East extension and the importance of having above-grade crossings, which sometimes can alleviate the man-made instances where someone pulls in front of a vehicle, whether it be on purpose for suicide purposes or additionally decides to think they can beat that train, or in instances, again, like we had here in the Chatsworth area. So I think we'd like to ensure that there is language in the SAFETY-LU where there is a priority for improving safety along lines where there are 2 trains on 1 track, as well as technology that would be able to determine ahead of time that we've heard all kinds of discussions, some things that could prevent the kind of accident that happened in Chatsworth. And
okay, we'll include that as part of the attachment.
And so, colleagues, this was an item that we'd had in committee prior to the tragedy on Friday, but I think it's timely in the issue of ensuring, and I think on everyone's mind, including our senators, and particularly Senator Boxer, who's playing a lead role in this reauthorization, is to include language that makes it eligible and a priority for safety in our rail lines and other modes of transportation in this country. So I'd like to have that as an amendment. And Ms. Hahn, you want to second that? Ms. Hahn?
Sure. Ms. Hahn seconds.
Thank you very much, Mr.
Thank you. Ms. Hahn is our next speaker.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. And I'm very glad that we're supporting, that we have this resolution, and I support it. And part of this transportation plan includes a dedicated funding source for a goods movement trust fund as part of this, and I'm very glad to support that. The last federal transportation bill put an important down payment of federal funds for the goods movement process, but the amount fell far short of our needs. I think only 2% of the total funds authorized went to freight-related projects. So I like the fact that's in there. And I certainly support Councilwoman Gruhl's mention of putting in there some sort of a reference and ability to fund real modern technological advances that we know exist to prevent any kind of a future train crash like we unfortunately experienced. I'd also like to, colleagues, introduce a couple of other suggestions, amendments that we would like to see included in this bill. One would be, I'd like to have us support a 10% set aside in the growth of the U.S. Customs duties. In the L.A. Customs area, that's the money that's collected as it relates to commerce that comes in our port complex. We generate $16 billion annually. That's about $12 million a day that comes into customs from our port complex. We know every container represents commerce, but we also know now every container represents risk. It represents a health risk, and it certainly represents a congestion risk. I would like always been supportive of the idea of capturing just a proportion of the growth. The federal government continued to get this $12 million a day. I know they've already probably appropriated it well into the future, but I'd like to take any growth of customs that comes into the port complex, like 10% of that would go back to the port where it's collected. So all ports across the country should be able to retain a little bit of the business that comes in there and put it back into infrastructure needs and environmental mitigation. I think that makes a lot of sense. I also would like to see in this bill a funding formula provision that supports self-help communities and states. I think California, we overwhelmingly passed a bond measure that went towards infrastructure. And I know we, in our own port, have passed, and we've approved it on the City Council, a container fee. So we're basically stepping up to the plate, both state and locally, and sort of taxing ourselves to help fund infrastructure and safety issues and environmental issues. I'd like for that to be, recognized in this formula of this bill. I think we should sort of go to the head of the class, and any state and community that is willing to fund part of this themselves, I think should be recognized in this bill. So, colleagues, I'd like to just see if we could support both of those as amendments, and hopefully we could get included into this bill when it goes forward.
The second?
Second.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Mr. Labange, and then Mr. Parks.
Hey, members, I think we're full of a lot of stuff when we don't focus. We talk about safety. I ask that on the 16th of October every year, which is like 6 months before we do the budget, that we focus on infrastructure. Things like this. Life goes on every day, and it is a terrible week in Los Angeles. But unless we schedule ourselves to focus on things that we see that are challenging us every day in our infrastructure, we are over 100 years old as a modern city, rapidly developed after World War II, and now we're going into a new century. Yet we still see things that we may perceive were 100 years ago, how it was done. I just wanted to rise, and I know this is not the issue, Wendy, but you brought it up when you spoke. We have to call time out and say, what are we doing right now in these areas? We have and I'm not picking on the police department, we have 300 officers or plus focusing on the issues of international terrorism, which is a very big deal. But who are our safety officers focusing on the traffic challenges of Los Angeles right now. At Sunset and Highland, there's been multiple casualty accidents this year. And do we say time out? And what could we do better? The issue of last week's end on Friday is a horrific accident that is reverberating. Different than the accident in Glendale Atwater because it was caused by someone there at a deliberate act. Was this something that we should know? And I know from my travels throughout this country or around the world, there's certain modernization of some infrastructure when it relates to transit that I don't know if we're being kept of. But members, I said October 16th, it's 6 months before we do the budget. We spend a lot of time on the budget, but I think at some point 6 months before we should have a yearly focus. Are we doing things in a direction, or what are our limits because there's no funding? Mr. Parks mentioned to me, rightfully so, that unless you have the money you can't do anything, but we should know that we don't have the money. Maria?
Well, and some of the motions that are pending before the Transportation Committee right now are dealing with that, specifically Safety Lou projects, what we've done in the past, what we anticipate coming forward, and I believe the department is preparing a report, and hopefully we'll have that list that addresses some of the capital concerns that you're talking about, and also the transit programs.
And we should try to line up with the state and the federal government so that we're on time to that. And I say that loud to our legislative analyst office that does a great job supporting us so that we could be in line with that. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Labange. Mr. Parks is next, and then Mr. Rosendahl.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would just ask that, and I appreciate all the work that's been done on this resolution. One of the things that I think we found in last year that the key for this funding was a local congressperson that was willing to put their energy into programs and existing planning efforts. And so I would hope that as we move forward on all of the motions we've done on planning, that we've gotten LADOT in line to get those planning efforts done. What I'd like to see if we can break out some of those existing projects by council district so that we can go to our local congressional person and say, here are 4 or 5 projects that are in the queue. They've been planned. They're ready to move forward. And as you get ready for Safety Lou, here are the considerations that we should have. When we go back and look at the last Safety Lou, the Valley did quite well. What we found in the areas south of the Santa Monica Freeway, the areas outside of LA City did quite well. And that's where the congressional leaders put their attention. Very little, if any, money was in the city of LA south of the Santa Monica Freeway. But their answer to us is that it's one thing to have a proposal or an idea, a concept, but if you do not have an actual project that is in play that they can take to fund, then they're not going to pay that much attention to it. So we need that kind of hard information, and I think we have several items that are in the queue. I know we have a small amount of funding for South LA transportation needs. All those things need to be lined up so that the council office can go to their local congressional leader and say, here are the projects, they're ready to go. We just need the money from Safety Lou, and then we'd have to worry about the match and the startup money and all that other. But if we don't have a project in hand, we're not going to be successful as we were unsuccessful in the city other than in the Valley. That's where they had their projects together, and they had a congressperson that led the charge.
Mr. Rosendahl, and then...
Thank you, Mr. President. Morning, Maria. Quick question. How much money do we get in that mix of transportation money from the feds?
DOT would need to respond to the amount that we've received. That will be included in the report when they come forward. We won't know for reauthorization what we plan, what we will be getting.
Do you know what we got last year, the year before, any of that?
Yeah, I don't have those.
Well, that's what we need to know. We need to know what the money is that we actually get. I mean, that's the real story, number one. Number two, you know the feds were smart the other day and decided to replenish the gas thing with about $9 billion so that no projects in the nation would slow down. That's a good thing. Do you have any idea what percentage of all that money Southern California California or LA City or County gets?
Not off the top of my head.
Okay,
I don't
that's
know
really
that.
important. So I don't want to ballyhoo here, just to say that the federal government has not given Southern California its fair share of its tax dollars, okay? We're a $50 billion donor to the federal government every year. We are the breadbasket of the nation. 25 million of us, it's the microcosm of the infrastructure from Santa Barbara to San Diego. My hope is the new president has enlightenment and realizes we need to reinvest in Southern California. We need to reinvest in our infrastructure. We've got to pass that half-cent sales tax. Otherwise, forget it, folks. But that's not enough money. We need federal match, federal contributions. We need more money. We need approximately $150 billion to truly do Southern California over the next 20 to 30 years. So I'm looking forward to our congressional delegation working as a team instead of playing out their politics. You know, I don't care about ideology anymore. I care about practical results of getting things done. When the Texan goes into the White House or goes into the committees, they go in as Texans. We need to go in as Californians and saying we need to get our fair share. So my hope is when those answers come back, we get a new administration, we come back and we look at exactly what we get in Southern California. We drill down and we get more of our fair share of our tax dollars to rebuild our transportation infrastructure. That wasn't directed at you, Maria, but I just wanted
and it was encouraging to hear Senator Boxer a couple of weeks ago when she did her field hearing that reiterated everything you said, and she will have a key role in the reauthorization process. So that is
God bless Barbara and God bless Diane, but that's two senators from Northern California. Yeah. They got a better deal up there than we do in Southern California. We've been
have a lot of work ahead of
underrepresented
us,
here ever since Alan Cranston left the Senate. Thanks.
Mr. Labange for a second time, then Ms. Gruhl for a second time.
I just wanted to say something, too. I think it's important, Maria. If we could look at it regionally within our city, and Mr. Rosendahl, as you know, Mr. Rosendahl, on the COG that you're involved with in West Los Angeles of bringing Culver City, Santa Monica, Beverly Hills, West Hollywood together, we have to look at it regionally. I think for those who represent the central part of the city and the east side, looking with Pasadena, South Pasadena, Alhambra, Glendale, Burbank, whatever it is, I got it. But I also say everything is political. And years ago I went to Florida, and there was more work done in Florida than everywhere else, and that's what happens. Years ago, I just went the other day through Riverside, and I saw the work. But also, years ago, we did do a lot of work down the Harbor Freeway, but we stopped at Adams, and we got to figure out what to do from Adams. The question that I got from Mr. Park's statement, Maria, is if we could look at it regionally. So if there's things in the East San Fernando Valley, we are talking with Burbank and Glendale and Pasadena and that corridor. If we look at the West San Fernando Valley, we are talking to Santa Clarita and Calabasas and points west. In the South Los Angeles area, we are talking to Vernon and Commerce and the airport, which a lot of traffic. So look at it regionally. I think it's important to look at things regionally as we move forward. I know it's a thankless job that you have because there's so many things that don't get done that we have stopped in our infrastructure outlay, but I think if we have to focus it, I was disappointed. I know, is anybody here from MTA? I never felt at MTA when I was there on the board that there was anybody standing up for the highway system at all, because it is a balanced system. It does take transit is very important, but also the highways, which 80 to 85% of the people and 100% of the trucks still move on. Local goods are moved, not airplane traffic. It has goods moving in it, and the bellies of the planes. Maybe some Greyhound buses have some cargo, but most of the stuff that's moved on the flat surfaces by trucks. Regionally is important to look at that. And also, Mr. Rosendahl, remember we talked about having a conference in Southern California? You said San Diego to the border, Santa Barbara. I think we have to look at those just to every year. You know, just like in an alumni game, when UCLA pays SC, everybody's excited about that week. There should be a week, and I don't know when it is, that we just, because it's like a huddle. You break from the huddle and you try to run a successful play. And time goes fast because it's already the 16th of September. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you very much, Mr. Labange. Ms. Gruhl.
Thank you very much. And just briefly to close, and thank you, Marie, we got a lot of discussion today. Colleagues, I want you to know also that we directed the Department of Transportation to meet with each of the council offices to talk about project-specific. This is overall, right now, arching themes, concepts, but we want to make sure that we're prepared and talking to our congressional members as this may go forward, and there are project-specific things that fit within our overall policy in the City of LA. So expect a call and respond to it so that you will be part of this planning process for Safety Lou. Thank you to the CLA and Department of Transportation, others for moving rather quickly to put this together so we have our voices heard by the Senate. Thank you. And the amendments that we brought up will be included. Thank you.
And thank you to you, Ms. Grewal, for your leadership. And it's not a thankless job. We thank you.
Thank you.
For your great work. With that, let's go ahead and prepare the roll and tabulate the vote.
15 ayes.
That is approved. Love those 15-0 votes. Next item, please.
Item 16 was called special by Councilmember Perry, and that amending motion has now been circulated.
Okay, it's now been circulated. Ms. Perry moves that. Would you like to say anything on it?
No.
Okay.
Not necessary.
Let's go ahead and prepare the roll and tabulate the vote.
15 ayes.
I will send that forthwith without objection, please. Next item.
Item 37, called special by Councilmember Labange, and 2 votes are required.
Thank you. And again, our apologies. Thank you for your patience. The members of the public on item 37, Zuma Dog again. Do not see him here. Edwin Musayan, if you'd like to come forward. And then Adrien Hamama. Good morning.
Good morning. Members of City Council, thank you for the opportunity to be heard on this issue. My name is Edwin Musayan, and the property at 2800 North Glendale Boulevard has been in my family for over a decade. I want you to be aware of the fact that on the September 4th meeting of the Cultural Heritage Commission, the staff recommendation to conduct further review of the application to designate the property as a historic monument died for lack of a second. And 4 out of the 5 members of the commission were present to vote. This in itself is kind of, for me, an indication of the lack of merit for the proposal and the application. There was representations from the applicant who spoke on the matter and was heard, and the historian who had prepared the application unfortunately arrived to the meeting late. I believe that the city has expended enough staff resources on this issue, and that the decision of the commission, the official body of the city designated with the responsibility to judge the historicity of the structure, should be respected. In the event you're not familiar with the issue, let me provide this summary of, as an assistance for the decision. Over the years, we've owned the property and we've leased it out to people who have run it as a auto repair or auto sales facility, and we did have some complaints from the neighborhood that they wanted to see a different use in the area. So when the lease expired and the last tenant, we didn't renew it. We went through a lot of expense and time and resource to figure out what's the best and highest use for the property would be. We considered several options, decided on an office structure. I think this. Could I continue?
No, unfortunately, we only have 2 minutes per speaker, but thank you. And if there's anything you'd like to submit, we'd be happy to take that as well. Okay, thank you. Adrien Hamama is our next speaker, and then Elizabeth Bogart-Sharkov. Good morning.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Adrien Hamama. I'm the property owner at question, which Heritage Commission did not want to consider as a heritage building. I'm a business owner. I'm a single person. I'm not a big business. I'm not trying to build a huge mega-story building there. I've had the property for many years, and I've taken this into long time of consideration. And we have listened to the neighbors and listened quite well, and they wanted something worthy of the city and not a small building that is deteriorating. This location provides financially for a family. It's not owned by a big business company. And what we are planning to do is going to provide financially for the community. It's going to bring business, not huge business, but some business, property tax, and not an infringement financially to any of the neighbors. And my immediate neighbors are happy to see something being built because it helps the community. And what we are going to build is going to help the citizens because it's going to help them go to offices that are immediately to their vicinity instead of driving quite a bit to go somewhere else. And lastly, I'm really disappointed that the process has taken this long because the Commission has made its recommendation and we have to come here and continue the process again. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Our next speaker, Elizabeth Bogart-Sharkov. After that is Charles Fisher. Good morning.
Good morning. Elizabeth Bogart-Sharkov with Silver Lake Neighborhood Council. I would like to sincerely thank Councilman LaBonge for taking this under consideration and putting it on the agenda. And thank you for the Council for the opportunity to hear us. This proposal is the application to the Cultural Heritage Commission is to preserve a little Art Deco gas station belong to Richfield Company. It is a small piece of cultural history in Los Angeles. The entire community, which I speak on behalf of, feels that this piece of history needs to be preserved, needs to be saved, not only for the people who live in Silver Lake, but for the people in Los Angeles, because we have lost already too much of history, too much of historic buildings in this city. So this is an opportunity to do something about our past culture, and also it is a grassroots initiative at its best. I speak also on behalf of the Silver Lake neighborhood, Silver Lake Chamber of Commerce, who is also in 100% support of this application. So I really ask the City Council to give this community a second chance to preserve this application and the community to be heard the way we always have been. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate your comments. Charles Fisher is our final speaker on this item.
Good morning, Charlie Fisher, 140 South Avenue 57, Highland Park. I actually wrote the nomination on this particular little gas station. This station would be one of there are only 3 gas stations in the city that are actually historic cultural monuments out of 932 plus monuments. We just essentially had a perfect storm on this thing between an error that was made where the letter to the owner went to the wrong address, coupled with the commission going through their early agenda very quickly, coupled with myself getting caught in traffic, coupled with the community thinking the meeting had been canceled because they had received a notice that the Cultural Affairs Commission meeting had been canceled that day. The only person that was there to speak in favor of it was the representative from the Los Angeles Conservancy, who had not prepared anything. We never had a chance to give our side of the story as to why this building is historic. And we were very thankful for Councilmember LaBonge for giving us this chance to actually make our case, so we will have a fair hearing so that the Commission will actually hear the full story on this particular little building. I might add that we were not able to do an original presentation when it first went before the Commission because it was a very busy agenda that day, and we were asked to just not bother, we'll go ahead and do a presentation later. And so we didn't get a chance to do the presentation later. So the Commission has never heard the full story other than the written testimony. And I urge the Council to support this motion so we'll have a chance to bring this back before the Commission. And I thank Councilmember Garcetti 3 years ago on the Purveyance residence where we had a similar situation and the Commission reconsidered it and we have saved a Schindler for that reason, and hope today we can save a very important part of Los Angeles history with the car culture in this form of this little gas station. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Fisher. That's our last speaker, Mr. Labange.
Thank you very much, members. This case before us here is a 245 issue. There's been a tremendous amount of communication, and yes, the people who own the property, I appreciate your heart and soul. But the beautiful thing about preservation and heritage is that people may apply. And for whatever reason, there wasn't the proper, what we would call, opportunity for everyone to come. Some people were confused with the meeting that was held there. It was a long agenda. Is that correct, Mr. Bernstein? Yeah, sit there. Yes or no? Is that correct?
Ken Bernstein with the Office of Historic Resources. What occurred at the Cultural Heritage Commission meeting, the agenda did move quickly. The applicant's representative was not present.
Okay, so the applicant's representative wasn't present, but the opportunity
Correct.
wasn't there. The community was confused. I think it would be good to bring this back to your commission, have another hearing, make a determination, and then bring it forth. So I'm requesting that this issue be sent back to the Cultural Heritage Commission so the public could be heard. At that time, they will have another hearing, and then they'll make their decision. Okay.
Thank you. Mr. Labange moves that.
Mr. President, the first vote would be to whether to assert jurisdiction.
Okay, let's go ahead and take the vote on 245 to assert jurisdiction. Go ahead and please prepare the roll and tabulate the vote.
15 ayes.
Jurisdiction has been asserted. Mr. Labange moves to send it back to commission to
Mr.
veto
President, I
it.
do believe the recommended action pursuant to the motion is to veto the action and then
Okay.
send it back to the commission.
All right. Veto and send back is the proposal before us. Please open the roll, close the roll, and tabulate the vote.
15 ayes.
That is approved. That will be sent back. Next items, please.
There is a special one, and the city attorney will speak to the findings.
Okay. Mr. City Attorney on special one, please.
Thank you, Mr. President.
I'm sorry. Can we go out of order and take special two first?
Special 2, introduced by Councilmember Parks, and the city attorney will speak to the findings on that one as well.
Mr. City Attorney?
Thank you, Mr. President. Since the posting of today's agenda, the LAPD has requested that council offer a reward for information leading to the arrest of a suspect in the kidnapping of 7-year-old Dante Marceo on September 1st, 2008. Immediate action is required to return the child to safety as soon as possible. Council must first make findings pursuant to Government Code Section 54954.2 before considering the substantive motion.
Okay, we will, on the findings of urgency, if we can please open the roll on that before we take up this item. Please open the roll, close the roll, and tabulate the vote.
15 ayes.
That is approved. That is now before us, Mr. Parks, and we do have two public speaker cards as well on this. Mr. Parks.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd ask that we have the public speakers come up at this time, and as they come up, if we can amend number 5 on the motion and make that 6 months instead of 60 days.
Okay. Without objection, we'll amend
we
that.
have with us today
Marjorie
Raquel
Duncan
Butler, the mother, Marjorie Duncan, the godmother, and we'd ask everybody to come up to the mic.
Hi.
Thank you for coming in.
My name is Raquel Butler. I'm the mother of the 7-year-old Zaria Marceo. She's been missing now for 16 long, hard days she's been missing. And these are pictures of her. And I'm pleading with you guys to please help me find her. I have reason to believe that she might even be over in Belize. And I just really need everybody's help. This is her with her new glasses on. She just got the glasses not even 2 weeks ago. So if you please can help me find her, I really, really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
To Mr. President and council members, and to Mr. Parks, who very graciously invited us today. My name is Marjorie Duncan. I'm a friend of the Butler and Robinson family, and standing with Raquel, or the baby's grandmother, Carol Robinson, and her aunt Stacy, and other friends. We are here today on behalf of a family that has great faith in God and has been respectful of the family court system of the state of California. We are asked to put our trust in a system that is believed to be fair and impartial, wise and judicious. even though repeated requests for mandated supervised visits because of the observance of questionable behavior and attempted intimidation of the child and other family members were ignored, they still followed the prescribed procedures of a legal system that demanded their trust. Even though the courts were privy to information regarding seemingly dubious thought processes which were either not given the proper weight of importance to the proceedings or perhaps ignored as emotional outbursts that were deemed justified, this family remained determined to follow the prescribed laws of the state. We are here today on behalf of a family whose voice needs to be heard above the mandates of the system that has absolutely failed this family, thus leaving behind the cries of an innocent child wondering, where is my mommy and my brother Rhett? I can imagine right now that she may be looking around with those big brown eyes behind her new glasses, wondering what is to become of her. I wonder if she is in unfamiliar surroundings with only one person that she recognizes as the person who has taken her from the comfortable girly room that she occupies in her home while her dog Trio waits in the foot of her bed. I wonder if she is sitting somewhere feeling alone and afraid and wondering, when is mommy coming to bring her home? Wherever she is, we ask that you pray for her and that she be returned to her mother and family who love her and who still believe in the system that we have now come to know as law and order. And we thank you for your very tangible assistance from this august body. God bless you.
God bless you, and thank you very much. Mr. Parks.
Colleagues, this is just a brief circumstance. On Monday, September the 1st, after a court-ordered visitation with the father, the 7-year-old Zahara was to be dropped off at Southwest Police Station at 7 p.m. She was never dropped off at the station. She was last seen with her father. The unique characteristic of the father is a triple amputee with artificial legs. The LAPD believes this is there's evidence that this is an abduction, and so we're asking today for a $25,000 reward, and we ask for any information to go to Detective Allen at Southwest Station, and the phone number is 877-LAWFUL or 213-485-1383. And we'd ask for an aye vote.
Thank you very much, Mr. Parks. We'll take that vote right now. If we can please prepare the roll and tabulate the vote.
15 ayes.
That is approved, and we'll send that forthwith to the mayor for his signature and get that out on the street. Thank you all very much for coming in, and our prayers are with you. Next, if we could take up special item number 1, please, Mr. City Attorney, on the findings.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just this morning, the state legislature reached an agreement on a state budget. Immediate action is required for council to be briefed on the budget's impact on city programs so that council could determine whether to take a legislative position in support of or opposition to the state budget before the governor acts. Council must first make findings pursuant to Government Code Section 54954.2 before considering the substantive motion.
Thank you very much. On the findings, is anybody, we have 2 speakers on the queue, but do you wish to be heard on the findings, Mr. Zine or Ms. Gruhl? Okay. Let's go ahead and open the roll on the findings, close the roll, and tabulate the vote.
15 ayes.
Thank you. That is now before us. I know we have our CLA here, so Ms. Gruhl and Mr. Zine. Ms. Gruhl first.
President, for your leadership on this. This was yourself and Mr. Parks and I to get a briefing. Yesterday, we were able to use Rule 64 in committee to have a brief update of what we thought might happen yesterday. And, of course, now action has occurred, although all over the radio this morning it sounded like and the governor's indicated he is going to veto it. I know you don't have anything in writing presented to you, but I think what we'd like to hear is, as we did in committee yesterday, how do we fare in this budget? What do we think is going to happen? And as you and I discussed, Mr. Garcetti, that maybe we would continue this to tomorrow and maybe continue it as we know more information, but that we thought it was important as the impact could be rather great on this region. So with that, I will let the CLA make their presentation.
Certainly. As Ms. Gruhl indicated, the legislature passed the budget about 2 o'clock in the morning. We haven't actually seen it, but we have some pretty good information about the impact on the city. There is not a lot of detail on the rest of the state budget, however. The total state budget is $106.4 billion. There was a $15 billion budget gap. It's addressed by $6 billion in spending cuts. The remainder is coming from accelerated revenues and closing tax loopholes. Now, in terms of the impact on the city, there is no local borrowing from Prop 1A or Prop 42. There is a take of $350 million from redevelopment agencies for 1 year. As you recall, the prior proposal was $225 million a year for 3 years. So the 1 year hit is higher, but it is for only a 1 year period rather than 3. The estimated impact on the city CRA is about $14.7 million, and they're now looking at how that would impact programs over the next year. Now, other than that, the governor has indicated that he is intending to veto it because of what he considers not sufficient controls over spending in the rainy day fund. It's unclear what he actually will do. Certainly the approval of the budget has enough votes to override a veto, so we'll have to see how that shakes out. In terms of the loopholes, closing tax loopholes, there's the issue of the tax credits for yachts. Beyond that, we don't know what those quote-unquote loophole closures entail, so we'll have to look at that. And it does not include a sales tax increase. It does include a ballot measure to modernize the state lottery and borrowing future proceeds. That would have to go to the voters. It's too late now to go in November, so they would be looking at a special election at some point. My understanding is there's been some talk about consolidating that with the county election in March. The film incentive package that was proposed did not pass. And essentially, that's it. I think in general, this is not a structural rebalance of the state budget. It's likely we're going to be, the state will be in the same position next year, and in fact worse, because much of what they're doing is borrowing money from future years and accelerating that until the current year budget. And we hope to get in writing, fill in some of the blanks on what's actually included in the state budget sometime today, and we'll be back to you tomorrow with anything we have.
Next speaker is Mr. Zine.
Can I just?
I'm sorry.
I just have a minute, really
Ms. Gruhl
quick.
still has time left.
I mean, I think that we are happy they have passed a budget, and that's the good news because there are a lot of people suffering out there. And I know the leadership of Karen Bass and Don Perot are really trying to push to ensure we could get a budget because I know some hospitals that said they're going to stop taking individuals after October 1st because they can't afford to without any reimbursement from the state of California, so that's very important. But I think the one item that you stated that concerns us in the future, which is that this is putting off that some of those big decisions that are going to have to be made. And I know that even in our budget, we tried very hard to make some of the tough decisions. There's still some decisions we're going to have to face in this next year. But I think we have to closely watch what impact this may have next year as we plan for our budget going forward, because they are delaying some of those tough decisions to the following years and potentially even to our grandchildren that are going to have to pay for this. So the good news is there's a budget. The bad news is this is not over in that instance. So I hope that you will look as the implications not only in this year's budget, but also what it will be for our next year's budget going forward. Thank you very much, Mr. President.
Thank you very much, Ms. Gruhl. Mr. Zine?
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. Miller, the redevelopment funds, 10 to 12 million impact on the city. The redevelopment, is that for housing, revitalizing areas, or is there a distinction?
Well, there was a proposal. It's basically 80-20. There's a 20% set aside that's just for housing. There is not a proposal to take that money. The other 80% can be used for housing, but is not reserved solely for housing. So they're taking essentially the 80% tax increment, and again, rather than 225, it's 350 million for 1 year. So the impact on the city CRA is nearly $15 million, not 10 to 12.
And no repayment.
not in the budget. That certainly may be something that this council would want to pursue to extend the project areas.
And the other question on the income tax, that would be on the income tax being withheld by the state. So whatever they're withholding on your income, they want to accelerate that. I understand 10%. So fewer dollars taken home, but down the road when you file your income tax, hopefully you'll receive that money back. So they'll be holding that revenue, gaining interest on that revenue, but depriving that of the employees statewide. Is that correct?
That's correct. There is the budget does include accelerating the collection of taxes. So
income tax.
Yes.
And the other one regarding the mid-year adjustment, I understand the governor wants to have the ability to do a mid-year adjustment, which may create a greater problem, because if he has that authority to do a mid-year adjustment without consulting with the Assembly and the Senate, it could be more devastating when the mid-year adjustment comes around. Has that been explored?
Well, that's one thing we're going to have to get back to you on. There is some authority to do mid-year adjustments by the governor, but we haven't seen that language. We don't know exactly what that authority means. Now, the governor's office has expressed concern that it isn't sufficient, as well as the rainy day fund. So those are the basis in which we're getting some signals that the governor may veto it.
So the impact on the city will be based upon what we know now. What will the impact on the city be?
On what we know now, on the city general fund and the transportation funding, there would be no impact. The impact on the city would be the economic development that we wouldn't have because of the CRA take.
So our budget for the police and fire and other agencies, other departments would remain intact?
I believe so, yes, although there may be some impact on the COPS grants. So that's one thing we're going to have to look at. But in general, the property tax and the Prop 42 money is safe.
Has the governor indicated he's going to support this, or he's going to reject this?
There are signals that he's going to reject it.
And then we go back to the same base to try and get it. But it got out of both houses.
It did get out of both houses.
With Republicans and Democrats both agreeing on it?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
We have Mr. Rosendahl and then Mr. Parks for a second time.
I was looking at Mr. Wesson over there. Was a speaker up there. He knows more about it than I'll ever know, and he's aware of the politics up there, which we need to know more of. A couple of things. One, that $150 million that we thought was threatened, which were the monies from props and the general fund. That's okay.
Yes.
So we're looking at about $12 to $15 million from CRA money.
Yes.
Okay. So those are the two financial issues that are at stake right now for us as a city.
Yes.
Okay. You say going into March. What might they do next March on the ballot?
Well, the borrowing against the lottery is going to require a ballot measure. Right. It's too late to go in November. So they will have to call a they'll have to call a special election. There is some indication they may be pursuing trying to consolidate it with the March election.
Yeah. So back to the borrowing game, which we've been doing for a while. The chickens will come home to roost someday on borrowing, won't it?
Yes, they will.
Yeah. So again, it's a shell game of reality to deal with the moment. I've talked to several legislators in the last couple of weeks about their frustration of we being one of 3 states that does the 2/3 vote. And this 2/3 vote is ludicrous. When we don't deal with our basic services, we don't deal with the basic responsibility of government. Could they, because some legislators have said to me they're going to do this, put an initiative on the ballot? Would it be a constitutional initiative to get rid of this ridiculous tyranny of the minority over the majority?
It would require a change in the Constitution that could either come from the legislature or it could come from an initiative.
Yeah, we have to change the Constitution. We can't go through this every year with a state budget. It's absurd. Do you agree?
It is very difficult, obviously, to get a budget passed with the voting requirements.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Parks. Mr. Parks.
Thank you, Mr. President. Jerry, I was just wondering, is that what is the process that if the governor does veto it, do they then have to overrule, or is it 2/3 on that vote also?
Yes, there would be an override vote if the governor vetoes.
The one thing you mentioned about our general fund, what is the impact on some of the things that, say, in the county? What didn't get funded there? Because I'm concerned that's where we'll see the impact in the city is the lack of services from the county. Will then be issues, whether it's in homelessness or whether it's dealing with youth or is dealing with medical, we'll see the end result of that by our constituents not getting services, and then there will be an effort on our part trying to fill those gaps. So secondarily, there will be a hit on us in some fashion.
Well, we do understand there are cuts in social services to balance the budget. Again, we don't have the details on that, but yes, you're absolutely right. Some cuts on social services, whether it increases homelessness and other issues that end up having to be dealt with by the city, there is an impact. Yes.
So what do you think on timing, when we'll get a better sense of what those county cuts will be?
Well, hopefully we'll be able to see it today.
Today? Okay.
We're going to do our best and then actually pour through the voluminous document to try to determine exactly what's in there and what the impact is.
What seems to be, unless there is a out-and-out war up there between the governor and the legislature, what seems to be the final date that this will be resolved? I mean, what is the timeline for him to sign it, and when will we say there is a budget?
Actually, I don't know if John Wickham knows the timeline, how long he has to sign it. I'd have to get back to you on that tomorrow.
Okay. The thing is, I'd like to see is as we begin to get information, if it becomes a real budget, the quicker that we can find out about the services that we plug into, particularly on the homeless issue and a variety of things on social services that we're in partnership, the faster we find out about those and whether that lack of funding is going to impair our ability to get programs that we've already funded or that we are partners with the county. The quicker we know that, I think the better, so that we'll be aware at least of what services may be cut back or what we could at least expect from the county. And so those are things I'd like to see as quickly as we can.
Okay. Ms. So just indicated the governor has 12 days to sign a veto. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. Thank you for that update. Without objection, we'll continue that one day and have hopefully some more information on the details of the budget tomorrow, and we'll get a price of that as well. Next order of business, please.
Council has motions for posting and referral.
Those are posted and referred. Ms. Perry?
There's an excuse on the desk. Councilmember Reyes, request to be excused to leave at 11.
Okay. Forthwith on 16.
It's been sent forthwith. Okay. Those excuses, please.
Councilmember Reyes, request to be excused to leave at 11:15 on October 10th for city business. That meets council policy.
All right. Mr. Reyes is excused.
That clears desk.
All right. Colleagues, I'm going to ask for us to rise for our adjourning motions now. I'd like to ask Mr. Smith. I'm sure we have some other adjourning motions, but we'd obviously like to start with the 26 individuals who perished in the Metrolink Train 111 disaster. I know many of us have connections through our districts, through personal relationships with the three city employees and other aspects. So I will, of course, call on other council members, but I'd like to have Mr. Smith first please read the names of all of the fatalities that have been named so far and say any words that he'd like to do to begin. Mr. Smith.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. And certainly last Friday was a tragedy that was beyond imagination of anybody around this horseshoe. I think we saw a few years ago when we had the Metrolink accident in the Glendale area of Mr. Lavange's district and Mr. Garcetti's, and that we would never see such a thing again. And in fact, what we saw was something twice as bad. That was the worst train disaster in California in almost 100 years, one of the worst in the country. I want to relay to you the comments I've heard from so many people in the community in the last few days, that they are so proud of our Los Angeles City Fire and police personnel, that they responded as they were trained to do, but no one can train for the kind of things that they saw. I saw a representative of the fire department speak yesterday saying, you know, we see a lot of death and destruction in our job, but no one trained us for what we saw at that accident site. And for them to respond the way they did was magnificent. I saw our police department responding from all over the city of Los Angeles. Units from everywhere in the city were dispatched, and 200 officers were at that site along with our fire department. And seeing them march in a formation to be dispatched around the site, to protect the victims, and help get the injured out was truly a magnificent thing to watch. I was unfortunately out of the area at the moment, but I did see what was going on. And one newspaper called it a choreographed dance, that our LA City Fire and Police were so well trained that they knew exactly what to do, and they did it with tremendous skill. And so we all go on record of thanking our police and fire for what they did, but also joined by the Sheriff's Department of LA County and the Ventura Fire Department who responded. They were magnificent. And then our community, usually in a disaster, people run away from disasters, and rightfully so. And we tell them to do that, actually. But in this instance, this community rallied in a way I hadn't seen many communities rally. Our neighbor councils got on the phone and got a phone tree going and bringing people there to bring water, blankets, food for the rescuers. I know of many instances where our firefighters didn't have water for hours because the logistics of getting that supplies there took so long, and it was so isolated. It wasn't easy just to drive a truck up there and support them. The support of the local school, the Sierra Canyon School, who opened up their entire facility, their yards and everything for the helicopters to land in, for the triage, was truly magnificent. I had my office, my field office is not more than a minute away from there in the Chatsworth Train Depot. My deputy there is Jim Dillinger, a former retired LAPD senior lead officer. He went immediately to the site, called me at my location, said, "You won't believe how bad this is. This is horrific. This is the worst I've ever seen in my life." And my chief of staff, Mitch Englander, who was a reserve police officer who had never seen this kind of thing and never been even really trained for this, was there all night long, all day into Saturday and into the Sunday, helping carry bodies out of the trains. To Mr. Alarcon, who I know was right in the area and responded to help with the rescue efforts. And then all the calls I got from all my colleagues saying, anything we can do to help, we're there for you. And I appreciate all of it. I know this community responded very well, and we can all be very proud of our city family, and we can be very proud of our citizens as well. So to all of them, thank you. If I may read into the record the names of those that are confirmed dead at this time. Christopher Aiken, Thousand Oaks. Dennis Arnold, Camarillo. Dean Brower, Ventura. Alan Lloyd Buckley, Simi Valley. Yi Chao, Simi Valley. Police Officer LAPD, Spree Disha, 35 years old, LAPD. Walter Fuller, Simi Valley. Ronald Grace, Simi Valley. Michael Hammersley of Simi Valley, a city employee who worked downstairs in our mail rooms. Jacob Hefter, Palmdale, a student. Carrie C. Ernest Stephen Kish II, Thousand Oaks. Greg Littner of Simi Valley. Paul Long, Moore Park. Marcus Marcius, Santa Paula. Ida Magdaleno, Camarillo. Charles Peck, Salt Lake City. Howard Berry Pompel of Moore Park, also a city employee working in the Employees Club across the street. Donna Ramada, Simi Valley. Doyle Saucer, Camarillo. Roger Spacey, Simi Valley. Maria Elena Villalobos, Moore Park. And Atul Vyas of Simi Valley. May God help all of them and may their families.
Thank you very much, Mr. Smith. Other members on this, Mr. Cardenas?
Thank you for that adjournment, Councilmember Smith. One of the names that you read off, Councilman, is Michael Hammersley, who passed away September 12th in the Metrolink train crash. Michael Hammersley was age 45, was a delivery driver in the Mail and Delivery Services Division of the General Services Department since July 17th, the year 2000. He was an exemplary employee with a 7-year perfect attendance record and was also the Exemplary Customer Service Award in 2005 from the Mail Services. A movie buff and a fan of Star Wars and Star Trek, he was inquisitive and always eager to learn new things related to work or in the world at large. Michael Hammersley would go above and beyond to accommodate customer needs within the city family. He also served as the graveyard delivery driver for 5 years, providing services to LAPD stations throughout the city of Los Angeles. He was well respected and appreciated by LAPD staff at various stations. In addition, he was a familiar face at the West LA office of the city attorney, DOT, Public Works Sanitation, Recreation and Parks and Public Works Engineering, Housing, and delivering mail to council members Bill Rosenthal's office and Herb Wesson's district office. His services will begin tomorrow, Wednesday, September 17th at 6:30 p.m. at Reardon Simi Valley Mortuary at 2636 Sycamore Drive in Simi Valley. Messages of condolences and contributions to the family can be sent in care of Tim Hammersley to Mail Services Division, City Hall, Room 161, Mail Stop 451. Attention, Aram Salmasi. And I'll turn this into the clerk.
Thank you, Ms. Gruhl. I will put all members on all of those.
I wanted to comment as well first about Michael, who delivered mail to our district office. And as I talked to my staff, he came every day and delivered their mail in a friendly face and someone who cared about the city of Los Angeles. And they wanted to make sure that as we adjourned in memory of that they could say to the family that they appreciated not only his dedication but his commitment to the city and the fact that he was that smiling face every day that brought that mail to them, and that he will be missed by all of them. And each day this week they thought about him when he did not show up at the door. Just want to add in, Mr. Smith was very articulate in your words as well overall. Our fire department and police department demonstrated, as always, that they are the best in the nation in their responsiveness and watching it, seeing that they meticulously did their job to save lives. And I think we owe them a debt of gratitude for their hard work and dedication. Our hearts go out to us when you hear this and you just hug your family and call your family to remind us that each day is precious, I think, as Mr. LeBon said to me the other day. Every moment is precious, and this tragedy we will learn from. We will mourn those, and we will say our prayers for those families who have to deal with this tragedy. And I think the whole city family can be proud of their response.
Thank you. Other members on this side like to say anything? Mr. Parks? And then Mr.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would just like to say that, no matter what we believe about the training for public safety, is that none of them are prepared for seeing what they've just experienced. And I would just hope, as we've seen from New York and other places, that each and every one that has been at that scene take advantage of the city services as it relates to psychological care. And sometimes those who say I don't need it are the ones that do. And I would hope that also that those in the public would allow that investigation to go forward and get whatever information available to the appropriate authorities, so that these families do not need a rumor a day or a rumor an hour about some nuance. They need a official investigation, so that when it's through, we can all feel certain that it's done appropriately. And I think, although no one will get back to normal, but the new normal is that they, in the sense of getting back on that train and going back and forth, we'll begin to see people at some point willing to take public transportation and move forward. But I would hope that those that were there take full advantage of those services. Clearly, they've done something or seen something that no one is prepared or no one's trained to be a part of.
Mr. Alico?
My wife and I were driving on the 118 to pick up some last-minute items for our daughter's baptism on Saturday, and we were going to Topanga Plaza, and heard on KFWB that there was an accident. We observed the smoke, and as we entered onto Topanga, we obviously saw the train wreck. You could see it clearly from Topanga. I pulled over a police officer, Officer Watson, asked for assistance. He was asked to go down to the site to search for anybody that might be on the back end of the train, which was underneath the tunnel. I had hiked that area many times as a young person, and I always used to wonder why trains didn't crash where there was one track coming out of that tunnel. And I think the community knew that as well, and they responded in kind, and I believe they were prepared for this for many, many years because they anticipated something like this happening. I hope that as we move on in the future, we learn to listen to our communities better when they are crying for help. I wanted to also expand the list of thanks in terms of agencies that responded, because I was amazed at the number of public agencies that responded. So I hope I don't miss all of them, because my memory is clouded by some of the things that are still deeply embedded in my mind. But I would like to, I remember the probation department, the highway patrol, Metrolink staff, the sheriff's department. I remember my daughter's best friend who they haven't since first grade to the ninth grade, and they haven't communicated since, but to see her, all of 5 feet tall, LAPD, carrying bodies. I was very proud, but all of that is undermined by the fact that we lost 26 people and others were severely injured. I only hope that Metrolink can recover quickly, that again we learn from this. I hope that we instantly look at ways to create a global system that can have the early notification process or other safety devices that some of us have come to know exist. I think most of us know that these devices can exist. It's a question of cost. The cost of this accident, I think, will far outweigh what could have been spent in safety technology that is currently available. My heart goes out to the families, and I just want to let those people that I was able to meet under those dire circumstances know that I'm going to do everything I can to contact them as I promised, and especially that teacher at Sun Valley Middle School. I'm going to stop by Sun Valley Middle School to visit his class because I'm sure he's not going to be there. But with that, I really have to tell you, I hope we don't see that kind of devastation on the Metrolink system again. As a former board member, I took it somewhat personally, but I also applaud the community. They were amazing. The public safety personnel were outstanding. But again, it's hard to overcome the devastation to the people who were hurt and who had their lives changed dramatically, and they remain in my thoughts and prayers every minute of the day.
Thank you very much, Mr. Alarcon. Ms. Perry?
I have two items, and one is actually an announcement. I wanted to take this opportunity to offer my sincere well wishes for a friend of my chief of staff who was on the train. His name is Joel Aronson. He's an advocate lawyer and a partner in the law firm of Newman, Aronson, and Vanneman, and he was seriously injured in the crash, but he is alive. And I want him to know, and I'm going to get this tape for him to cheer him up, that I think we all wish him a very speedy recovery and send all of our love and good wishes to him, to aid him in his recovery, and to his family and his friends, and to all of his loved ones. Now, the next is an adjourning tribute to Maria Elena Villalobos, who was a student at the Fashion Institute of Design and Merchandising, or FIDM as it is known, here in downtown Los Angeles, and she lost her life in the accident. Ever since she was a small child, Maria had wanted to be a fashion designer. At the age of 18, she already had a name for her future line of denim clothing, Diamond Wreck. She was driven by her passion for design and described her design style as very modern. This past summer, she enrolled at FIDM and would travel from her home in Moore Park to downtown to attend her classes. She was known as a fun-loving young lady who was always smiling and laughing, and so I would like us all to join together today in paying tribute to her life and remembering her.
Thank you very much. On this side, Joel. Mr. Zahn.
I want to also acknowledge our mayor. I was at the site also, and our mayor was there for many hours. He spent the evening there, the night there, helping people. Also, I know Mr. Alarcon was there. Mitch Englander from Greg's office. Mitch did a tremendous job. Greg, you need to know he was there tirelessly helping. In addition to the agencies that were mentioned, the Office of Emergency Services was there, the school police, railroad police, the CERT team was there, large numbers. The CEMP out of Devonshire was there, Citizens Emergency Mobile Patrol. The airlifting reminded me of a war zone where the triage area and the priest, Father Keswick, was there with the people. And it was just like a war zone, like a battle zone where the helicopters were landing and they were loading the most critically on the helicopters and taking off. The airlift operation and the coordination of efforts with the agencies. Chief Berry was in charge. The incident command, it was impressive how everyone worked together so successfully. I think there were 500 officers between the LAPD, the sheriffs, the highway patrol, the way they came together. And what I saw, a number of the people who deceased in the lead car, and how the firefighters would remove the body and the young police officers would then take those bodies down to the side of the track. And some of those officers have never seen a person who died, and it was very moving, very tragic. I know that the impact will remain for many, many years on all the rescuers, and there are hundreds of rescuers in addition to the community folks. But to look at that triage area that they had set up in the grassy area, it was just like a war zone, where they had some medical professionals there that were tagging the people and the injuries, and then certain people jump on the helicopter and on their way. But the coordination of effort was very, very impressive. Hopefully we never encounter that again. But also the people who are in the hospital. There's a number of people that are in the hospital that are recovering from their injuries. Hopefully there won't be anyone else who succumbs to their injuries, but to their families and to the people who are in the hospitals currently recovering, may they recover successfully, and may God rest on those that departed, the 26th who have passed, and may God heal those that are recovering and get them back with their families and with their loved ones. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Zine. And our prayers are with all those families that right now are hoping for recovery. We have a number of city employees that have been injured that include one individual that I think we might have read about, but also know about privately from the Bureau of Sanitation, who was on the Atwater Village crash that happened as well. It's astounding, but I know that there's been much support in the city family and much love, and our prayers and thoughts will continue to wish for that speedy recovery. Any other members on this? Ms. Gruhl for another adjourning motion.
Colleagues, I'd like to ask you to join me in adjourning for Susie Gastelum. Susie Gastelum passed away on Monday, September 8th, 2008, after a brief but valiant battle with brain cancer. In her words, she lived a beautiful and happy life. She lived life to the fullest, enjoyed spending time with her family and friends. She was married to Ron Gastelum, who, has been very active, led the Chamber of Commerce for a while there, and really all that I've heard about her, she was an incredible woman and was taken way too soon from this world. A memorial service is planned for Wednesday, September 17th at 10:30 a.m. at the Peninsula Community Church and Rancho Palos Verdes, with a reception following at the La Venta Inn. In lieu of flowers, they're asking that people make a donation to Children's Hospital of Orange County, an organization that was close to Susie's heart, and a special to their family. I know we send our wishes and prayers to her husband Ron and family members Ron Jr. and Liz Gastelum and Eric and Sonny Spielman. I know that many of you, and may we have all members.
We'll put all members on that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Other adjourning motions? Mr. Parks?
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to ask that we adjourn in memory of Rosina Tatum, who passed away Friday, August the 22nd. She's a past president of the Consolidated Board of Realists and a member for over 50 years, where she championed democracy in housing, and with certainly a great deal of determination and courage. She's had many accomplishments as it relates to the real estate business in the South LA area, and she's survived by her husband. Also, we'd ask you adjourn in memory of Judy Manya, who passed away on Saturday, August 16th. She was born in San Diego, moved to LA in 1989 to accept a job with the Agency of Social Security Administration. She has been both best known in working with a number of our local elected officials, from Diane Watson to Karen Bass. She also worked with recently Sandra Davis in Culver City, but she also was a founding member of the Los Angeles African American Women Public Policy Institute, where she was involved with a variety of training sessions. And also, she was one of the founding members of the Los Angeles African American Women Political Action Committee, where she served as the chair of the Hospitality committee. Her services were held on August 26th of this year. And then finally, I'd asked for both Mr. Weston and Ms. Perry to join me on this, that during in memory of Tina Allen, who was a world-renowned sculptor. She passed away September the 9th, 2008, at the young age of 58. She died from complications of a heart attack. She has numerous bronze sculptures throughout the nation, such as George Washington Carver in St. Louis, Douglas in the African American Museum in Birmingham, Alabama, Sojourner Truth in Battle Creek, Michigan, Martin Luther King in Las Vegas. She also participated in the sculpture of Celeste King at the Baldwin Hills Mall. She's best known for her 13-foot statue of Alex Haley in his hometown of Knoxville, Tennessee. She was born in 1949. She came out of a very talented family. Her father was a jazz musician. When she was 11 years old, she worked with a renowned sculptor and subsequently graduated from the University of South Alabama. She's survived by her mother, her 3 children, and her memorial service will be scheduled next month in Los Angeles.
Thank you. Mr. Zion.
Thank you, Mr. President. George Putnam passed away September 12th. George Putnam was a broadcasting pioneer, one of the inspirations for the Mary Tyler Moore Show's Ted Baxter. George, although absent from television for many years, still continued his syndicated radio program, George Putnam's Talkback. He was a top-rated and often controversial news anchor for such Los Angeles television stations as KTTV, KCOP, KTLA, and KHJ, which is now KCAL. George Putnam was born in Minnesota, spent most of his early years on a farm. At age 20, he landed his first broadcasting job for a radio station, WDGY, in Minneapolis. He was 94 years when he passed, survived by his companion for 52 years, Sally Conlon, daughters Jan Putnam and Jill Putnam John, brother Robert Putnam, and several grandchildren. I had the pleasure of being on his radio program a number of times. A man with a quick wit and always knew how to say it. And I still remember him with his horse riding down Hollywood Boulevard on the Christmas parade. George Putnam, a legend in Los Angeles media. May he rest in peace. Also, it was reported today that Elmer Dills, who's a television food critic for KABC TV7, passed away. We'll get that adjourning motion tomorrow. Elmer Dills was a former CIA agent, and from that went into culinary, and he was for 30 years with Channel 7 broadcasting the food. Another sad departure of a wonderful man from Los Angeles media. So may George Putnam rest in peace.
Thank you, Mr. Rosendahl.
Yes, as you know, and just for the record, I spoke to George Putnam about a month ago. We did a radio show together, and we were celebrating his accomplishments to the greatest society. I had prepared his 94th birthday resolution, which we talked about on the air. He was focused, he was articulate, he was in the hospital at that point, but it was a great moment. We were interacting and laughing together and just appreciating each other. And as my colleague just said, his legendary role on television and radio stands before all of us forever. But it was a pleasure for me. We were over there with Tom LaBonge over there at this Metro thing. We were doing a shtick with the mayor, and we had him on the phone, and we were talking, and we were doing it. So, as we always say, all we have is the moment, and he had a great moment with all of us. And thank you, Mr. Simon.
Thank you. If there's no other adjourning motions, Mr. Clerk, will you please call the roll? We will be... Sure, all members if you'd like, no problem. We'll next be in session tomorrow. That's Wednesday, September 17th, here in the John Ferraro Council Chambers. We'll be discussing some of the motions put forward with recommendations on train safety. In the meantime, everybody have a good afternoon. This meeting of the Los Angeles City Council is adjourned.